Duncan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. I'm really keen to get your thoughts on how you think we can support businesses and households with Australia's energy transition and net zero transformation.
Right. Well, it's a really interesting time. Of course, we've just had an election, so I'm not really in a position to talk about what the government's forward plans would be, because that's still an issue that we need to discuss with them. But what I can say is the different ways that we've got the opportunity in government to support businesses and individuals to improve their energy efficiency. And there's a range of these, and we've got programs that seek to address all of them. And I'm really interested in the community's ideas about how we might improve each of those programs to pull harder on those levers. So we can do things like transparency measures through things like star rating systems and other forms of reporting.
Like NABERS or NatHERS?
That's right. That's exactly right. We can do things that are about minimum performance standards and other kinds of standards and regulation. Yep. That's things like
the stars on our air conditioners, on our fridges, the E3 program.
That's right, as well as things like some of the building standards that we do for residential building standards are being improved at the moment, and we're about to start work on industrial building standards. So those are perhaps two of the most important levers. We can also think about the way in which we regulate markets to provide incentives for people to do the things that we would like to see them be doing more of. We can, sometimes in government, you can fund things directly, but more usually it makes sense to help people to understand how they can invest their money in a way that will make sense. So things like providing support for planning and advice, and we do that through...
Oh, you do that through multiple different programs, the Business Energy Advice Program being one of them.
Exactly. So these are the levers we've got, and I know that opinions vary across your stakeholders about whether we could pull harder on some of those levers. And I know that this incoming government that's just been elected is really interested in listening to those things, and so are we, so that we can think about how we can get the best performance out of the energy we use, because the energy you don't use is the best kind of energy we've got, and we're going to need all of it in order to make the progress we need to make to decarbonise our economy.
So it's really interesting when you're talking about government's role in supporting households and businesses with those frameworks under which upgrades can happen or behaviour changes can happen. So with that in mind, what do you think the role is of consumers, whether they are households or businesses, in actually supporting the energy transition, and how can we as government and industry and consumer stakeholder groups support them with that transition?
Right, that's a really good question, because sometimes people bemoan to me a lack of leadership in government, and that's an issue that we can always look to see how we can lead more. But governments have to respond to their communities or they get voted out. So a big part of it is the communities providing that impetus to government and leaning in and doing what they can do. So really the things that individuals can do are the same things that governments can do. So transparency measures, well, if you're looking at your own energy efficiency, do your research, find out what the best products would be. If you're a business that's got its pitch to a client and who wants the client to adopt better, more energy efficient practices, find out how it'll be in that client's interests to do that heavier lifting. So that's what transparency means for the individual, is do your homework about how you can do more. Minimum standards, think about the future. Think about how by building a better product or using a better product, you can end up saving money, getting better performance over time. So that's what minimum standards looks like when you're an individual. You've got direct investment. You've got sending market signals, and you do that by telling other people about what you're doing and helping them to understand why maybe they should do it too. So all of these things that governments can support with frameworks, we can take advantage of as individuals and lean in, because everybody is going to need to lead for us to meet this challenge. Nobody can afford to sit back and point their finger at somebody else and say, I want them to go first.
That's a really, really good point. And there's obviously a government program that has enabled businesses to have a lot of that capacity to demonstrate what they are doing and to be forthright with that, which is the Commercial Building Disclosure Program, which is underpinned by NABERS, the National Australian Built Environment Rating System. It's really interesting looking at NABERS, within the NABERS, within offices that have been rated by neighbours, we've seen a drop of 40% in energy consumption over a period of 10 years. And that's in large part because of the CBD program requiring that disclosure. But what's really interesting is the capacity of individual businesses to say, I'm letting out my space, check out how great and energy efficient it is and how healthy and comfortable that would be. So it's really great to see programs like that running, and keen to see whatever happens in the future and work together as government and industry together.
Yes, thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned CBD. It's a great program, and it shows how even when the disclosure is voluntary, what an important market signal that is. So even when people don't have to participate in the scheme, building owners find over a period of 10 years that they just find ways to improve their energy performance massively. They save their bills, they save their tenants money, and that's more money in their pockets. And they do that without needing to do it. And then we've got some mandatory disclosure, which follows up on that, which is almost like bringing a horse to water. So that's where you're taking a business. It would make sense for them to do it voluntarily, but they may not realise that. But when you bring them into the scheme, they also benefit and make those savings. A lot of energy efficient schemes are like that. It takes time, so it takes 10 years because people need to replace equipment when it wears out. And so there's a replacement schedule which can take as much as 10 years. But we need to get on that treadmill so that in 10 years' time, we're at the far end of it. And hopefully by then we can find more and better ways to take energy efficiency even further.
Awesome. And I'd like to highlight on that piece of waiting for when things wear out. We recently worked with your team on developing a tax incentives guide, which is utilising the tax incentives that are currently available in a post-COVID situation to support businesses with reducing their costs. And effectively, we've been encouraging businesses to reduce their energy consumption by using the temporary full expensing tax measure to replace energy consuming equipment like boilers, like lighting, whatever assets that they've got, because it's pretty much all available. And programs like that weren't designed for energy, they were designed to help businesses get over the first recession in 30 years. They're actually really fruitful for making decisions around energy. So having some of those frameworks and guidance there that can support has proved really useful. So thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to chatting more later.
Fantastic. Good luck for the rest of the day.
Thanks, Duncan.